On the one hand, you have movie studios that refuse to use anything except already successful IP, intellectual property, to guarantee making money, and on the other hand, you have a public audience so unbelievably sick of reboots, prequels, and sequels and are desperate for original content. So what is a realistic and sustainable solution to this problem where both parties would be happy? Sharks, my pitch, we're gonna do retellings. More so a return to retellings, because this is not a new or novel idea that I came up with and I'm a genius. It's something that we were doing before that I think we should bring back. Some of the greatest romantic comedies of the late 90s and early 2000s are all Shakespeare retellings. 10 Things I Hate About You? That's The Taming of the Shrew. Anyone But You? Recently? That's Much Ado About Nothing. And even She's the Man, that is loosely based on Twelfth Night. And also, not a romantic comedy, but The Lion King is just Hamlet. Hear me out. Instead of just doing another Scream, give me a story about two teenage boys that become best friends and somehow fall down the path of violence doing unspeakable crimes, and don't tell me that it's a prequel to Scream until the final shot when they pick up a ghost face mask from the store. And for the naysayers in the comments, that'll never work. Nobody knew that Split was a sequel to Unbreakable until Bruce Willis showed up at the end. Hello? It can be done, I promise! I would much rather have that Scream prequel than whatever the hell's going on with Scream 7. If you're going to remake Rocky, let me change that. When you remake the Rocky movies, because no IP is sacred at this point, instead of redoing Rocky 1, give me the entirety of the Rocky franchise from Adrian's perspective. Because we don't really know anything about Adrian because she's not a character, she's a plot point. I would love to see a story written about Adrian watching the man that she loves destroy his body and himself over and over and over again for the love of the sport and to provide for her and their family. How did Paulie and Adrian end up disliking each other? Because there's clearly a history of not great stuff that happened between those two, but we don't know anything about that either. So how fascinating would it be to get Adrian's perspective of 6 different Rocky movies? Actually 5. No, 6. Because, spoiler alert, she does die in the 6th one. Off camera, by the way! And retellings are very popular right now. 2024's Book of the Year from Barnes & Noble, that was James by Percival Everett, which is a retelling of Huckleberry Finn from the perspective of Jim the Slave. You even have some of the most famous retellings right now, Song of Achilles and Circe, both by Madeline Miller, taking Greek myths and modernizing them, and then just absolutely crushing your soul with them. Even the book Julia 1984, which is the entire book 1984, told from the perspective of Julia, because if you've ever read 1984 by George Orwell, you probably had the question of, wait, Julia's cool as hell, we need to get more backstory on her. And now we do! I think doing retellings would be an interesting exercise in writing, as well as a new and refreshing way to take these beloved characters and stories and movies and do something interesting with them while still making money because they are the successful IP that we've come to know and love, right? And I pitch a return to retellings because most prequels, reboots, and sequels fall into the basic categories I'm about to line up for you. There's gonna be a lot of overlap, so let's not get too fastidious with the logistics, okay? Just hear me out. Let me cook. One of the main storylines that a lot of sequels, particularly legacy sequels, tend to do is the passing the torch. And this falls under 2 categories, which would be mentorship and family dynamics. Mentorship in the sense that a character from the original franchise starts mentoring a character in the new franchise. So think Top Gun Maverick, where Maverick takes on not only Goose's son, but this entire new class of Top Gun pilots. Or the Creed franchise, which is Adonis Creed, who is Apollo Creed's son, and Rocky is now his mentor. Family dynamics would be the children of the characters from the original franchise taking on the lead roles, and more often than not, it's a complete rehash of the original movie, so think Scream 5 and 6. And I haven't seen them, so probably might be the same thing. Ghostbusters Afterlife and Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. Another one would be reevaluating the past, so it'll be the original character from the original franchise in a new place in life, and they're really looking back on all the decisions they've made. And I think that one's a lot more interesting than the mentorship or family dynamics thing. Logan, for example, we had 20 plus years of Wolverine movies, and the Logan movie was him coming to terms with everything he did and his mistakes and his mortality. And it was such a great movie until a certain other movie came out that just completely desecrated the legacy of that movie, but I digress. The other type of reboot, prequel, and sequel storyline that they tend to go for is the new threats and altered world. So think original characters from the original franchise in the future, so things are very different. Think Tron Legacy, think the Jurassic World movies, even Jumanji 2 and 3, because he went from board games to video games. That's a logical progression. And honestly, I like Jumanji the next level. Sue me, I think it was a fun one. Did we need it? Absolutely not. Under the umbrella of new threat, we have the evolving villain. So I think the MCU would be the best way to describe this because it is one cohesive timeline. Maybe not cohesive, but at this point it's a timeline, and every new movie there's a new big bad, and every movie they defeat them, and then there's another one. And then finally, and in my opinion the most egregious type of reboot, prequel, and sequel is just nostalgia and retromania, where there is zero substance. They do not even make an attempt to make a story. They just bank on the fact that you're going to recognize these characters and be like, oh my god, and that's it. That's all it is. So think Space Jam, A New Legacy. Think Coming to America. And most recently in the MCU, Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, Spider-Man No Way Home, and Deadpool and Wolverine. Sure, it's really fun to get the cameos that we got in those three movies, but if you take away the cameos and the fan service and the nostalgia, what merit do those three movies have? Quickly! I'm not totally against reboots, prequels, and sequels. I think if chosen carefully and treated with love and respect, we could get a couple of good ones. Because some of the ones that I mentioned here, I absolutely genuinely adore. I think the Creed series is one of the best legacy sequels of all time. Top Gun Maverick is better than the original Top Gun. But then there are some that are just so beyond my comprehension. Like, how did Inside Out 2 make over $1.6 billion? Billion with a B, despite being bar for bar, beat for beat, the exact same movie as Inside Out 1. But because they were 9 years apart, nobody remembers that, but I do. I do. It's tough, you know, because at the most recent D23 Expo, which is the big convention where Disney announces future projects, all but 2 or 3 were sequels. We're getting Toy Story 5, we're getting Zootopia 2, Incredibles 3, and it just goes on and on and on, and it just, at what point does it stop? I mean, we know the answer. It's when it stops making money, but unfortunately, they keep making money, and it's a bummer. That's my Shark Tank pitch for potentially solving the reboots, prequels, and sequels problem. It's most likely not gonna happen, but I think it would be an interesting thing to see. I have lots of ideas for IP that we could do retellings of, and I would love to hear yours down below. Thank you so much for watching yet another one of my film rants that had no direction or scripting and is just stream of consciousness style content creation. But hey, that's showbiz, baby. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!